Welcome to Dragon's Forge. Today's video is about how to play Cardfight Vanguard. To start off, we're going to go over how to build your first deck. Your deck is comprised of 50 cards total, 46 cards in your main deck, 4 in your ride deck, with 4 copies of a card maximum, 4 Sentinel cards maximum, 16 trigger cards total, 4 heal triggers maximum, with 1 over trigger maximum. So with this information, what we can glean is you have a total of about 34 cards to actually play with in a more significant way, whereas the other 16, they are defined by having to be trigger cards, but you can only have a maximum of 4 heals and 1 over trigger. As well, you might ask, what is the main deck and what is the ride deck? The main deck is where you are drawing your cards throughout the game and also doing drive checks. Your ride deck is where you are pulling cards from in order to ride up through the grades that we discussed previously in our earlier videos. Now, with the basic framework of the deck laid out, we're going to move on to the phases of a turn. So starting off, you'll have your stand phase, which is where you will untap all of your cards from the previous turn if they have been tapped. Then you have your draw phase, which is where you're going to draw your card for your turn. Then you have your ride phase, which is where you're going to be riding up from one grade to another, or potentially doing your persona ride. Then you have your main phase. This is the point in the turn where you are calling out your additional rear guards, activating abilities. Then you move on to your battle phase. Your battle phase is where you're actually conducting battle, or you are protecting your vanguard itself. Then you have your end phase, which is basically a cleanup step where there are any abilities that may be coming to an end or may be activating in the end phase. Now, to go a little bit deeper into the battle phase, there are several steps that are involved. There is your start step, which is basically the point that you are entering your battle phase. Your attack step, which is the actual point where you are attacking. Then there is the guard step, where either yourself or your opponent are guarding their vanguard or rear guards. Then there is your drive step. Your vanguard will do what is known as a drive check, where you'll be checking the top of your deck to see if you get a trigger. Then there is the damage step, which is where you are actually applying any damage for any attacks that did get through and hit the vanguard. And then you have your close step, which is just the point in which you are resolving any leftover abilities that need to complete themselves at the end of the battle phase. Now that we've gone over the parts of the turn itself, we're going to go over the battlefield that we will be playing with. Now, this is what the battlefield itself will look like. Now, it does look like there's a lot going on, but we'll go over each part of this. Hey, Nugget, can you help me out again with some paint? But this time, let's go with something that pops a little bit better than last time. I got some complaints that red was a little too hard to see in the video. So maybe, can we do some blue?
Aye, sir.
So with our first arrow, this is where your deck will be located. This is the main deck that we mentioned earlier in the deck construction. Right next to the main deck, we have where the ride deck is located. And below the main deck, we have also the drop zone, which is your discard pile, your graveyard, depending on what type of games you are used to playing. Now at roughly center, we have what is known as the Vanguard Circle. The Vanguard Circle is where your representation of yourself is fighting in the battle. Now, surrounding your Vanguard, there are 5 rearguard circles. These are where all your rearguards will be placed. These are your Vanguard's backup. These are the troops that the Vanguard will use in the battle that is to ensue. In the top middle, this is the Guardian Circle. This is where you will be guarding your Vanguard or rearguards using the cards in your hand or utilizing your grade 2 interceptors. To the left of the battlefield, you have your damage zone. This is where you'll be placing your damage up to 6 damage in total. This is also where you'll be making usage of your counterblasting resources. Above the damage zone, you have your order zone. This is where you'll be placing your orders as you play them once per turn. And it is important to remember that you can only play 1 order per turn unless you have an additional ability that states otherwise. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go through a mock example of your first 4 turns in a game. And we're going to apply certain things throughout to give it a rough approximation of an actual game itself. We will be doing an actual mock battle in our next video to see how the overall flow of the game does look between two sides combating each other. To start off the game, we're going to start by drawing 5 cards from the top of our main deck, and we're going to then set aside any number of those 5 cards that we wish to return back to the deck. This is a process known as mulligan. In order to mulligan, we're going to set those aside. We're then going to draw back up to 5, and then those cards that we set aside, we're going to shuffle back into our main deck. To start off on your turn 1, you start in your stand phase. As you can see, I have Sunrise Egg as our starting Vanguard. After your stand phase, you have your draw phase, where we're going to draw our first card for the turn. Now moving into our ride phase, we're going to go ahead and discard 1 card in order to ride 1 card from our ride deck. This will allow us to move from Sunrise Egg to Blaze Maiden Reno. Now if we were going second, this is at the point where Sunrise Egg's ability would activate and allow us to draw an additional card. From riding, we now move into our main phase. As we went first in this scenario, it's generally not advised to call additional rear guards because you will be reducing your overall ability to guard, or you may be giving your opponent additional targets to attack or eliminate. From there, we move into our battle phase. For the first turn, we cannot attack. Now, if we did go second, we can attack in that instance. And then we enter our end phase, where we will apply any additional abilities or resolve any abilities that need to be completed. But at this time, we have nothing to resolve. Moving into our second turn and our stand phase, you will see that we received 1 damage. This was done by our opponent during their first turn, where they were able to attack. So moving on, we would stand any cards that may have been rested from the previous turn. But in this case, since we were unable to attack or tap for any abilities, there is nothing to untap at that point. Again, at this point, we move into our draw phase and we draw our card for our turn. Moving on to our ride phase, we're going to go ahead and discard yet another card in order to ride on top of Blaze Maiden Reno into Blaze Maiden Rayu. At this point, Blaze Maiden Reno's ability will activate, allowing us to search our deck for a Trickstar and put it onto a rearguard circle. Now moving into our main phase, we're going to go ahead and call out a Blaze Maiden Reno. Now moving into our battle phase, we're going to attack first with our Blaze Maiden Rayu on Vanguard circle. Blaze Maiden Rayu's ability will activate, giving her an extra 2,000 power. We are going to now do a drive check, as it is the Vanguard that is attacking. So we will flip the top card of our deck to see if we get a trigger. We flip the top card of the deck and we get a Blaze Maiden Reno. We will add that Blaze Maiden Reno into our hand, and then we will allow our opponent to guard if they wish to do so. Next, we will move on to our next attack, where we will have Blaze Maiden Reno attack with boost from Trickstar. At this point, Blaze Maiden Reno's ability will activate, giving her an extra 2,000 power. The power applied by Trickstar will give her also an additional 5,000 power, putting her at a total of 15,000 power. After allowing our opponent to complete their guarding, we have completed our entire battle phase, and we move on to the end phase, where we will do any additional wrap-up of abilities that we need to do. As there are none to do, we just simply end our turn. Moving into turn 3, into our stand phase again, you'll notice that we received an additional damage from our opponent. So now that we've actually got cards that are rested, we will now stand these cards. So we will turn them back into upright positions and move on to our draw phase. Again, during our draw phase, we will draw our card for the turn and then move on to the ride phase. As we have in all the previous turns so far, we will again discard 1 card in order to ride Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana. When Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana rides over Blaze Maiden Rayu, you get to Soul Blast 1, which is where you take 1 card from your soul, which are the cards underneath your Vanguard's top card, and send it to the discard pile, and you get to search your deck for 1 Verena card. As well, at this point, you'll notice that our ride deck is now empty. We have ridden through all the cards that were available in there, and now if we do any additional riding, it will be purely from hand. Now we move into our main phase. At this point, we're going to go ahead and swap the positions for Trickstar and Blaze Maiden Reno. You are able to swap the positions of your rear guards in the same column but you cannot change their positions in the different rows unless you have an ability that states otherwise. So by swapping them, we now have Trickstar in the front row, and then we have Blaze Maiden Reno in the back row. At this point, we're going to utilize Verena from our hand, and we're going to overdress Trickstar. Overdress is the main mechanic for Dragon Empire under this particular build. This allows us to evolve our rearguard units into more powerful rearguards. What Verena does itself is it's a grade 2 when it's overdressed and it attacks your opponent's Vanguard. You are able to Soul Blast 2 to destroy one of your opponent's rearguards. As well, in this overdressed state when attacking, Verena will get an additional 10,000 power, putting him at a minimum of 20,000 power. Now we will move on to our battle phase. We will first attack with Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana. At the point of attacking, Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana's ability can be activated, where we counterblast one card, which is where we will flip one of our damage cards face down, and that allows Nirvana to apply a 10,000 power boost to himself and any other cards that have the overdress ability. So Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana will get an additional 10,000 power, putting him at 23,000. And then you can also apply an additional 10,000 power to Verena, which starts him off at 20,000 power. Now moving on to the drive check for Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, we will actually flip 2 cards this time because Nirvana has the ability of Twin Drive. We will flip our 2 cards. We get no triggers at this time, so we will not be applying any additional abilities to this battle. Our opponent will guard if they wish to do so, and then after that, we will move on to our attack with our Verena. So Verena will attack with that 10,000 power. It's 10,000 power based, and then it will also attack with a boost. So with this total, it will get an additional 28,000 power, putting this column at 38,000 power overall. Moving into our end phase, you'll see that some of those power boosts, they were temporary. So, for example, Nirvana has stayed at the additional 10,000 power, then Verena has now moved down to only an additional 10,000 power. At this point, we will complete our overall turn and resolve any additional abilities, which in this case, the ability of Nirvana will end as we move into our opponent's turn. Entering into our stand phase, you'll make note that we have received an additional damage during our opponent's turn. During our stand phase, we will go ahead and stand all of our units. And once again, we will draw during our draw phase for the turn. Now entering into our ride phase, we will ride Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana upon Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, and this will activate Persona Ride. What Persona Ride is when you ride a grade 3 of the same name that has the Persona Ride icon on it, it will give your entire front row an extra 10,000 power each and allow you to draw an additional card. We will now move into our main phase, and then we will just move into our battle phase. To start off our battle phase, we will have Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana attack and counterblast 1 to give an extra 10,000 power to Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, and as well any additional overdress units, giving Verena an extra 10,000 power as well. At this point, we will do our drive check. Our first drive check, we will reveal no trigger, and on our second drive check, we will reveal an over trigger. So at this point, what we will do is we will give power plus 100 million to our Vanguard, and then as well, since it was a drive check that we revealed this, we will use the additional effect and apply an additional 100 million to Verena. At this point, we will remove the overtrigger from the game and draw a card. Next, we will attack with Verena. Verena will attack with boost from Blaze Maiden Reno. Then we will move into our end phase and we will resolve any additional abilities that need to resolve or activate and complete our turn. With this completes our overall view of the turn structure as a whole, but we are going to go a little bit deeper into one of the portions that we did not cover fully yet. We're going to go over how guarding works at this point. On these two battlefields, you'll see that we have two Vanguards that have 13,000 power respectively. Specifically, these are two Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvanas. The player on the left will have their Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana attack, and in return, the player on the right side will guard with a 15,000 shield. So in order to hit when you are attacking with a Vanguard, you need to have either equal or greater power than your opponent's card, with any additional abilities being applied or shield being applied. So in this case, our 13,000 power is up against 28,000 power total. What this means is in order to hit, we need to hit two triggers. So at this point, we will do our drive check for the Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana that is attacking. On our first check, we will get a front trigger, giving an additional 10,000 power to our entire front row, putting Nirvana at 23,000, but still 5,000 short. We'll do our second. We'll reveal a critical trigger, which will apply an additional 10,000 power to Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, putting it at 33,000 power, and as well increasing its crit to 2. This will allow it to do 2 damage instead of 1. At this point, the card that was called to the Guardian Circle will go to the drop zone, and we will start revealing for damage. For the first damage, we will reveal a Blaze Maiden Reno, so no additional effects will apply at this time. Now, as for the second check, for the damage that was increased by the critical trigger that was revealed previously, we will reveal our second damage, and that will be a heal trigger. So this heal trigger will activate. Heal triggers activate when you have either equal or greater damage than your opponent. So what we'll be able to do is we can heal the Blaze Maiden Reno and send it to the drop zone, and then this heal trigger will go to the damage zone, effectively only allowing us to take 1 damage this turn, whereas we would have taken 2 if we had not revealed a heal trigger. And with this completes our tutorial on how to play the game of Cardfight Vanguard. Our next video that we will do is how to construct your very first deck beyond just the parameters that we discussed earlier on in this video. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day.